Let me preface this by saying that Black Swan could have also saved Firefly, as she demonstrated in a previous encounter with the death meme, but she also didn't. But I suppose eyes were on Acheron specifically because Black Swan immediately excused herself from the scene, while Acheron stayed and then apologized, claiming that it was her fault. Then talks about her being an Emanator of Nihility arose because then they would explain why she let Firefly die. Perhaps she had seen how it all would end and Firefly's death was necessary to further the plot. So here I am once again proposing a different theory because just like Farina, who I liked from the get-go and was labeled useless and weak, I have made it my job to defend Acheron. Also, since I play the female Trailblazer, I will be referring to the Trailblazer as Stele. Now, at first, I was skeptical of everything Aventurine said. It's some kind of a disease on my part where I'm introduced to an overly friendly, flamboyant male character who seems to know it all, who won't stop smiling but the smile never reaches his eyes, and then he says something and I make it my job to prove him wrong. I mean, Ifrit, the Duke Inferno who was hyped so much before 2.0, name dropped in a 1.6 mission, had a dedicated relic set talking about his lore, featured in a teaser video. That character, you're telling me that character is dead? Murdered off screen? I don't think so. And then Aventurine mentioned that Acheron stole his invitation and that was how she managed to get into Penacony. But didn't we have an entire sequence in the beginning of the quest that basically established that if your name is not in the reservation list, you cannot check in? If it was Duke Inferno's invitation that she used to check in, how did she manage to get past the receptionist? And I almost dismiss his statement about Acheron being an Emanator as well if it's not for the text being in yellow and something strange that I noticed in her splash art. These two things then led me to the conclusion that Acheron is a Galaxy Ranger as well as an Emanator. Remember when we encountered Sam at the lobby and he did a scan on both Acheron and Black Swan? He then identified them as a Galaxy Ranger and a Memo Keeper respectively. Which is weird, right? If Acheron was lying about her identity, hiding her true nature as an Emanator, why couldn't Sam see through the lie and identify her for who she really was? After all, Sam was able to identify Black Swan, who appeared like any other human being, as a Memo Keeper. If it was a simple lie hidden behind the way she introduced herself to everyone, Sam should have been able to see through that. Unless the Acheron that Sam scanned was indeed the Galaxy Ranger Acheron, and the Emanator Acheron was hiding somewhere, tucked away from the scan. Let's have a look at her splash art. Look at the gray at the tips of her hair and then the red at the tips of her outfit that looks so much like bloodstains that I almost wrote it off as Swan at first. Where are those in her in-game model? So far, the Acheron that we've met has dark purple hair and white-purple kimono-like outfit. But in fact, if you look closely, red and monochrome are the predominant colors of the splash art. I mean, look at the red umbrella, the red and black frame, the red nihility symbol, the black and white lightning symbol, the flowers, the skull, the background, and then compare it to Aventurine's, for example. The predominant colors in his in-game model are gold and green, and they're reflected on his splash art. It's almost like purple is the one out of place here. Or perhaps it's a cover-up. Because then look at her sword, the long sword that she was so hesitant to draw that probably could have saved Firefly. The scabbard is of white and purple colors, meanwhile the hilt and the crossguard have that red accent to them. And remember what she said to Stella after Firefly was murdered? She said she had no choice and went on to say that,
"And then, with one swing of your blade, you must understand its meaning and the price you pay."
What was it again that Raiden Shogun said during her burst? Torn to oblivion? See, what if, just like her Genshin counterpart, there is another version of Acheron within the sword? What if she's the red and monochrome Acheron that we have yet to meet and she possesses such immense power that would cost the life of everybody in sight when she's unleashed? That's why she was hesitant to draw her sword and save Firefly, because the cost to save Firefly would be the life of everybody in the room, Stella included. That's why even when pressed further, she didn't elaborate and instead chose to end the conversation. How could she explain to Stella that the reason they're still having that conversation right there, the reason Stella was still standing right in front of her was because she let Firefly die? And that's why Sam could only identify her as a Galaxy Ranger. The Emanator was in the sword. technically, she is only a Galaxy Ranger when she is in a purple-white outfit. However, that is as far as I would agree with Aventurine. What he said next about which Aeon Acheron might be the Emanator of, that was basically a shot in the dark. His guess was as good as ours, potentially a red herring as well to distract us from the clues that have been right there before our eyes from the very beginning. Right there, in the background. Doesn't that look like a black hole to you? And we do have an Aeon that resembles a black hole, don't we? The Ninth, the Aeon of Nihility, which also happens to be Acheron's path in the game. Furthermore, the flowers in her splash art are the same flowers that can be seen on the relic set available in 2.0. This relic set, a diver's helmet, a compass, an airtight bodysuit, and an anchor-like pair of boots, once belonged to Freebass, a nameless who aspired to go to the depth of the Ninth, a road deeper and further than Achilles. Freebass used to have a female companion who always carried a long blade. As Freebass was losing all of her memories when she got closer and closer to the center of the Aeon, she saw a dash of crimson, a dash of red akin to the slash of Acheron's sword, perhaps? Also, Freebass's journey into the depth of Nihility was described as taking a dive into a deep dark sea, and the relic set is literally called Pioneer Diver of Dead Waters. Freebass was the diver diving into Nihility, the Dead Waters. In Greek mythology, Acheron is known as River of Misery, one of the 5 principal rivers of the underworld, upon which the ferryman would transport the dead from the upper to the lower world. And from Acheron's character introduction, we know that Acheron is not her real name. So, to sum it all up, Freebass took a dive into Nihility. Acheron knew that it was a pointless suicide endeavor, so she came after her, probably hoping to save her friend. That's when Freebass saw the dash of crimson. That was Acheron trying to save her. Now, the relic set doesn't mention what happened to Freebass, but if we were to assume that the blood that Acheron mentioned to Stella was indeed Freebass, then she's most likely dead by now. What we do know for a fact is that Acheron is still alive. Somehow, she made it out alive from the black hole. So, while the Ninth is described as an Aeon who couldn't care less about anything, and it is highly unlikely that they would bless anyone to be their Emanator, the fact that Acheron made it out alive is enough proof that she could be an Emanator of Nihility. I mean, how else could one survive an Aeon that is a literal black hole if it weren't for the Aeon themselves lending one their power to survive it? If this turns out to be true, that another version of Acheron, one that is more dangerous and deadly, an Emanator of Nihility is within the sword, and purple Acheron acts like the cover to lock away and suppress the Emanator, just like her purple-white scabbard to cover the sword, then this would also explain Acheron's memory loss. While we are yet to know how the dynamic between purple and red Acheron is, my friend Arena suggested that perhaps when red Acheron takes over, purple Acheron is disconnected from the mind and would have no recollection of whatever that happens throughout. Think of Mark Spector and Stephen Grant from Moon Knight when Stephen was kept in the dark while Mark took the wheel. Instead of memory loss, it's more like gaps in her memory. And this could also explain the red text of her dialogues. That's red Acheron talking to us, basically. It's somewhat funny to me. I started looking into Acheron because of what Aventurine said about her, wanting to defend her because I felt it unfair that he was spilling all that accusation when Acheron wasn't there to defend herself. But if this theory is proven right, then I'm once again defending another character who has been accused of something they're not, who turns out to have multiple personalities. I guess I have a thing for characters with deep dark secrets. I don't know, what do you think? Also, if you're still here, thank you for sticking around. My name is Rain, and this is my first attempt at theorizing the lore of Honkai Star Rail. I do have some other topics I would like to cover, so keep an eye for more videos in the coming weeks. Until then, bye bye!